Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Let's get started. So good morning and welcome to Vibrant Pittsburgh's Resilience Through Equity series. These learning sessions are an opportunity for Vibrant Pittsburgh to highlight and tackle critical opportunities to improve the practices, policies, and cultures of organizations in the Pittsburgh region, increasing the impact of our collective diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Resilience Through Equity focuses on the 9 categories from the Vibrant Index criteria and connects you to the expertise in the region and beyond. Today's discussion links to the Vibrant Index diagnostic category, community engagement. Our session today is being recorded and will be made available on the members resource section of our website. It will also go on the public section of our YouTube channel. Please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Today's session is open to the public. When you have questions during the presentation, please enter them in the Q&A box. We will get to your questions before the close of today's session. My name is Allegra Elson, and I serve as Director of Training and Development with Vibrant Pittsburgh. I'm also joined by Matthew Yohe, Programs and Services Manager. We're excited to host this conversation inside Asian Success. You will meet our speaker in just a moment. So let's talk about our session today. In recognition of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we will be in conversation with the founder of Himalaya Quantitative Solutions and Vibrant Pittsburgh partner, Jenny Yu. She'll discuss her interviews with George Kurian, Xihao Hu, Buck G, Wes Hom, and Sharon Feng, showcasing their unique paths to success while embracing both Asian and American cultures. Let me take a moment to introduce Jenny Yu, founder of Himalaya Quantitative Solutions. Jenny is a financial modeling executive with over 25 years of successful global experience. She has the unique ability to reveal the real story behind the data, bridge the gap between data and algorithms and business processes, and also leverage this insight to provide strategic solutions for stakeholders. Jenny Yu concentrates her practice on financial modeling and model risk governance around statistical models and AI and machine learning tools. Later on, we will also be joined by Wes Hom. And all of the speakers you see here, you can find their full interviews on video at the Himalayan Quantitative Solutions website, and we will drop that in the chat for you. So I'm going to stop sharing right now and have a conversation with Jenny. Hold on one moment, please. So good morning, Jenny. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Allegra. Thank you for having me.
Sure, our pleasure. So tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about what brought you to Pittsburgh also.
Okay, so I grew up in China. I came to the United States about 29 years ago and for graduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And after graduation, I got my first job here in PNC. And I have lived in Pittsburgh ever since and raised my children here. They were choosing to really love Pittsburgh. When I just get here, I was looking for a map, and a stranger stopped and helped me to find my way. And the people here are really friendly. And I remember I called my mom. I said, "This is the place I'm going to raise my kids." The second thing is Pittsburgh has everything big city have, but it's not too far apart. So I don't have to commute like 3 hours like my coworker in New York. And as a woman, I can balance work and life here. That's why I spent like 25 years here.
Thanks for being such a promoter of Pittsburgh. I appreciate that. So tell us about Himalaya Quantitative Solutions. What is it?
I found it's a company I founded. I think you said in the intro very well. Is we provide model risk management and financial modeling service for middle-sized financial institution, from traditional statistical models and the AI and the machine learning tools.
Okay, great. I know this, we didn't talk about this question, but what's your feeling about AI going forward? It's always in the news now, and everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's grown way faster than we expected. I feel like the future is the reality right now. There's a lot of there's one of the subject I really interested to explore is to seek to have a guardrail around those AI and machine learning tools, to make sure it empower our daily life and add a benefit, but also avoid harm.
Yeah, so I think those guardrails will be important as we look forward.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, my last 25 years experience, a big part are related to develop those model like that, and focus on those traditional statistical models, but all those skills and the develop risk management part can expand it to AI and the machine learning part.
Great, thank you.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that also. So let's talk about Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. What does this month mean to you? And I know that it is more than a month, but what does it mean to you, to be celebrated, but also to think about it, how does it play out over, 12 months of the year also?
Yeah, I think it's a month to like you said, to celebrate culture. I think the most important to recognize the contribution and the achievement, the strengths of those Asian Pacific Islanders. And I'm very proud to be Asian American, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's celebrating, but it's also continuing this conversation throughout the year.
Yeah.
Have you done anything to celebrate this year? Anything special that you've done with friends or with family?
I think a lot of times, like I hosted this interview series. That's part of it. I talk with friends about that.
Yeah, so it's this,
and I work with you guys how to promote it.
Yeah, it was very exciting to see the interview series and everyone that you are interviewing. So Jenny, what does it mean to embrace both Asian and American, or shall we say North American cultures?
I think it means to identify, celebrate and value the positive aspects and the strength of both culture. And it means use the strengths to empower individual and to create a more vibrant and inclusive society. For many Asian American like me, it is a learning process to harness the best of Asian American culture, and it gives me unique perspective and allow me to add a distinctive value to the organization or the community that I'm part of. And I find that I become a better version of me because the positive influence from both cultures.
Can I ask you more about that? A better version of you from the positive influences both cultures. Do you have an example of that? That's a really interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I think just use myself as an example. I feel like I used to focus book smart, be nice, and the part of American culture shaped me to be more assertive, and the most important, have fun through the journey.
Okay, so be assertive and also have fun through the journey.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I think I need that too for myself. So great. Thank you. So let's talk about the video interviews. I highlighted those a little bit at the beginning in the slide. How was the project developed?
Actually, I'm an Asian American, so I understand the culture difference, and also I always feel it's my passion and also the responsibility to help improve the communication and understanding and the connections among those cultures. About 16 years ago, I co-founded Asian American Affiliate Network at the BNY Mellon. And since then, I have put all different events to celebrate the Asian heritage. Because most of my time I spend either working or parenting. And so I deeply understand the challenge to have a successful and a fulfilling career and the struggle of balanced work and life. So almost all my events focus around these two subjects, career fulfillment and work-life balance, with which I believe I can have more authentic and impactful dialogue.
Okay, all right, great. I'm glad that we're continuing on this journey with you. Can you tell us a bit about the speakers you interviewed and why you chose them in particular?
So the short answer to why I choose them, I know them. They are, yeah. So
That's
they all
fair.
say yes, and I think that I can tell them each one of them a little bit later. But all my guests have a unique path to success, and they very importantly they all honest, humble, and very, very kind. They are always willing to help others to succeed. That's the reason I choose them to be my guests. And we have 5 of them. I can briefly tell you a little bit about them. George Kurian grew up in India. Now is the CEO of NetApp, a Fortune 500 American company. The way he was raised has huge influence on how he leads now. And so the topic for him is about harness the best of different culture. Xihao is a CFO of TD Bank. He became a partner at Deloitte at around, I think, early 30. And his unique strategy is what I call the successful sales in Asian way. Bak Ji is not a typical Asian, and Asian tend to take a business failure more personally. Bak is an entrepreneur and a former vice president at Cisco, and he was involved in 6 startups and 3 failed. So topic for him is not let fear of failure stop you. Wes Hom spent 32 years in IBM and with over 20 plus assignments, which paved the road for him to become vice president at IBM. So his interview reflects his own path to become a corporate executive. Sharon Feng, many of us know, is the director of science and technology at PPG and board member of Coppers. And she's an excellent scientist, a leader, a mentor, a wife, and a mother. She's a woman who has it all. As an Asian woman, he has worked in a male-dominated world. So we choose his topic as how to break bamboo ceilings.
Yeah.
Like I said, the most important thing for those guys, the things that impressed me the most is their willingness to help others. I think Wes spent a lot of time to serve the community, and what he did and what the other leaders have done has inspired me to pay forward. That's why I spend a lot of time to put this together. Hope our audience with different heritage background can learn and those stories can inspire them to pursue their dream.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I've had the pleasure to watch some of these videos, and we have dropped the link in the chat, and we'll continue to do that. And I think what's interesting about the videos is everybody's journey is very, very different, and all of the stories are so interesting as the way, there are different paths to success, how they thought about them. And as you said, the people who help them and how they continue to help people also I think is very, very important. Yeah. So you sort of looked at their, shall we say, life stories and helped to pick the topics that you thought would, be interesting, but also something that they, really wanted to talk about, and that would be also informative to the rest of our audiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask how long did it take you to accomplish all the interviews?
I would say a long time. I mean, it's the first time for me to have those interviews, so it takes a lot of time to put on a schedule, and then have a video and have someone edit it a little bit. But it's a very rewarding experience for me, and I think it is not only I learn from the insights, and I learn about myself through that process. And the people ask me, how do you get those speakers? The first, I know them, I met them before. And the second part is just, I'm not afraid to ask. Particularly when I ask the how that will benefit the community, and most of the people will say yes. Just never afraid. I mean, I often say, never be afraid to ask for help, but always willing to pay forward.
Okay, great. Okay, which is what you've been doing throughout this month and today, and so really glad that we can be on your partner on this also, to pay it forward. So this is a great, I think, a great segue to go into a few of the interviews. We have some clips that we want to share with our audience, and so what I'm going to share first is a clip from George Kurian, and we'll run through the clip, and then I'll see what comments and things that, and see if there's any questions that come up from there. But we will start with George, and then we'll take a pause, talk a little bit about George, and then we'll move on to Sharon. So give me 1 minute while I get those started. Okay, so. All right, so we're starting first with a snippet of your interview with George Kurian, who is the CEO of NetApp.
As you move through your career, do you think that your colleagues or people you interact with understand you and your cultural norms?
I think they've grown to get to know me and grown to get to understand my culture and the values. I think that's a joint responsibility. I think when I first came to the United States, like all immigrants, you tend to prioritize integrating into the majority culture that you're a part of. And there are many things that you have to learn about that culture. For example, one of the traditions in the Indian culture was that you never asked for compensation or greater rewards and recognition. Your parents would recognize when you had done something good. And so that was very hard to understand in the American culture. There are, things like playing golf that I didn't really do. And so you have to find ways to, integrate into the culture. I think over time, what I've learned is that you appreciate the diversity that, being an immigrant in another country gives you the chance to bring. You bring your values and experiences. You learn from other people's values and experiences. And I've also learned that, it's easy to stereotype the majority. Not all Americans are extroverted, for example. And so it's really important to take time to understand the individual and their background and
Yeah.
experiences.
I like you mentioned the joint responsibility. Do you have can you elaborate that a little bit more, or even give an example how you take your part of responsibility to make people understand you, and how did you make sure message communicated and you got the support you need?
I think the first, step is to realize that it is a joint responsibility. I think the second is to, go into those types of discussions with good intent on both sides, assumption of good intent on the others and good intent on yours. I think the third is to seek to understand before seeking to explain. So I always try to put myself in what is that person's thinking. They say walk a mile in the other person's shoes. And so I really try to understand what they're thinking and then share where you are coming from, being completely vulnerable and transparent. I think the more transparent you are, the more easy it is to build trust. And then you realize in that process that, there's the ability to set aside the stereotype and to leverage the superpower. Everybody has a superpower, and by putting all the superpowers together, you can build a really strong, kind of team, family, culture.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I would like.
I just want to stop here for a minute, Jenny, and get an idea of some of your thoughts about what George said. I was interested in, as an immigrant, we think about prioritizing integrating first. And then the joint responsibility. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on what George had to say.
Oh, I really like what he says about joint responsibility. And when working in the large corporation, I hear a lot of executives talk about what we can do. The corporate has a good intention to help the individuals with different cultural background. I think at the same time, as an individual, we have to take outside of the responsibility to make sure we communicate, we reach out. And I think one of the things when we talk about it before is, I would say, don't exclude yourself before others exclude you, which means particularly when we come to the United States, or we feel we're not belonging here, and it's our responsibility to have that curiosity to their culture, to reach out, to make friends, to understand them, and then to get understood. I think is like, I love what George said, is a joint responsibility.
Yeah, so don't exclude yourself before others can exclude you, correct?
Yeah, and Americans in general are very friendly. So don't assume they want to exclude you. Yeah.
Okay, so don't assume. Yeah, so don't assume. Yeah. What are some ways that you included yourself when you first came to the United States, or what are some ways that you worked on this joint responsibility?
I think it's a learning process. The more comfortable you know they are in general friendly. I think we went to Madison, Wisconsin first. The Middle East people, they're extremely nice. I went to I think probably the first encounter is the church I went to. They provide the English as a second language, and so I want to learn English. That's almost the first. And then soon we were invited to the Thanksgiving dinner at their house, and I think this is a part of, at least I am willing to step into the church to meet those people. Even I have my intention was to learn English, and later on those families who hosted us become friends.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. So it's really what you're what both you and George are saying, that it is a two-way, it's a two-way
Yes.
street. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just have it curious. Like we all travel a lot. For those immigrants come to the United States, you took a long way to get here. Just have that curiosity to the culture here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that. So we're going to move into your interview with Sharon, and there are a couple spots where I will probably pause, and then we'll be moving then into part of the interview with Wes, and I'm going to invite Wes then to speak with us. Jenny, I am getting a little bit of feedback during the video. I think if you could mute while I have the video on, that would be helpful. So I'm just getting a little bit of feedback. So let's start with Sharon and talking about her definition of success.
To kind of share with you my definition of success first, because success means many different things to many different people. So some people define that as your net worth. How much money do you have? Some people define that as the progress on the career ladder. Did you make it to the corner office or the boardroom? Some defines it as a influence sphere, as reputation, be respected in the community. All these are reasonable parameters you can define success. However, for me, most important thing is, do I get fulfillment from what I do? If I feel fulfilled, then I think I'm successful. So I just wanted to get that out there. So to answer your question, what is the single most important success factor? It's usually a fairly hard question to answer. However, I had opportunity to participate in a study about 20 years ago sponsored by National Science Foundation to study at the time the woman scientists working in male-dominated chemical industry. And they have tenure between 5 to 15 years. And they want to find out what made them successful. So since I am one of those women, I got the opportunity to sit on the advisory board for that study. After 8,000-ish interviews with women, with their managers, with their subordinates, look at their progress through their career, one of the very obvious factor came out, most important to their success, is actually their own confidence in their abilities to add value. So that was very insightful, and I would say I concur from my own experience that is the most important factor to men or women for their success in working place.
So Jenny, I want to invite you back to unmute and see, do you agree with Sharon's definition of success? Does it, follow yours? Does it follow your definition? And what do you think about this idea of, if I have confidence in my ability, I will be successful?
I definitely like the definition Sharon mentioned. I think is in line with the definition I put it here. When I say career success it is beyond the corner office or job ranking. It's more about those people, they were able to find the fulfillment and the joy and the satisfaction of accomplishing something from their career.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
And Sharon mentioned the confidence. I want to point out a couple of things about confidence. Is like a people sometimes I would call it more like a fuzzy word. Through the conversation with Sharon, I was able to translate them into some action, along with the conversation with others, translated them into several different action items. One is the focus, the value you bring to the table. Second thing is the tenacity and the reputation you add to the practice that will eventually give you the confidence. for myself, my number one strength, I'm a learner. So even I'm doing just okay right now, but I'm very confident I can be better. I can become better. So those can be the resource of confidence. If we focus on those things, is tangible, actionable item will build our confidence.
Yeah, so having actionable items, the action items that you suggested here to build confidence. Yeah. But do you think, is confidence coming from inside, or do you think we as colleagues, as coworkers, as managers also have a responsibility to help build confidence?
That's a great question. It's almost every time I interview the successful people, even if it's not in the camera, I will ask this question. I think there's a bigger part is come with how you were raised. There's a big part of how we can sort of train or reframe the angle. Like I would say, if I focus the value can add to the table, I can gradually build confidence if I have that tenacity and the practice frequently enough. So I will get a confidence out of it. So I think probably is it is like a most, there's a big part of it can be nurtured.
Can be nurtured. Yeah.
Can be nurtured and can be developed through, intentional practice.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to go a little bit farther in Sharon's interview, just for a little bit, in which I believe she talks about a bit about unconscious bias, and then we are going to move to Wes's interview.
Have experience that you encounter those unconscious bias, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, of course, I think everybody encounters unconscious bias, right? Whether you're Chinese or Asian or not. So the unconscious bias often comes with the shape of a stereotype. And they are, the people who you interact with may not have any ill intent. It's just how they think the Chinese are. So very often I receive complimentary comment about how good my English is. And I think one time my boss, the CTO, said, how come nobody ever comment on how good my English is, right? Because he's a native speaker. So the other often bias I encountered is about Chinese, is about how good you are in engineering or math. So
sorry, everybody.
Does that imply I'm not good in business, in management, right? So those things you encounter, I think the best way to overcome those unconscious bias is to be really make friends with as many people as you can. So you let them have opportunity to learn, to know you, right? And that's the best way to overcome unconscious bias. But it also reminds me, I also have unconscious bias, right? So I think that is also a good learning to say, I shouldn't put people in a stereotype, right? So the other thing about in the workplace, the most important awareness is these unconscious bias also reflects on how people view you in your communication style, in your management style, your leadership style, right? So one of the example I often remember is when I originally, maybe 5 years into a leadership role, I did a 360 evaluation from everybody I worked with, my boss, my subordinates, my peers. And an interesting result came back as people could view me not as assertive. So there's actually half of the people, my boss especially, think I'm very assertive. But actually my team think I'm not assertive. So it's interesting. So I digging a little bit deeper is because my way of resolve conflict is not by just say, I'm boss, this is the way we're going to do, right? That's not my style. My way tended to be building consensus, trying to harmonize the different views, bring people to the same place, same results. You can get things done, but without having to bossing people around. But somehow that can be in somebody's eyes, I'm not assertive.
Yeah.
So the way you deal with that is I really talked to each of our peers or our boss or my team member says, would you please give me an example that I couldn't get things done because I'm not assertive enough? None of them can think of one thing. They were like, no, you always get what you wanted done, right? Because I'm saying, is that assertiveness? They were like, yeah, I guess, right? So it is, you use data, you use direct communication, you use interaction to make sure you can overcome those biases, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to stop there and see, I think it's interesting. It's some cultural differences. And Jenny, I wanted to get your thoughts about some of what Sharon had to say about, what assertive means in our cultures and how that works. So I'm going to stop sharing here. So.
About assertive?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting, that 360 evaluation was, for some people, she was not assertive, but she was still able to get things done. So people were not able to see how she was getting things done because it didn't fit into, what we think, what maybe North Americans think is assertive. So.
I think this is probably even beyond the cultural issue. I think George in his interview says American in general more outgoing, but you don't assume every one of them are outgoing. I think different people interpret the same message with their own judgment into it. So to manage things in a very more agreeable way, and it can be embedding in both culture, and not necessarily just Asian culture. And I think it's just it's Sharon's leadership style, and if it can be viewed differently by different people.
I think that's what I like about all of these interviews is that it really is, they're breaking down these stereotypes and talking about how you can't just put all of us in a box and just say this is how we're going to, go forward and how we're going to do things. So, and that's what I think each interview is able to hit upon that and how, that type of thing. So I was going to show the interview with Wes Hom, but I think since we have him here, it's much more effective to invite Wes to join us right now on video and on audio. And welcome, Wes. We're so happy to have you here today. And I know that we talked a little bit about the questions I was going to ask you. One of the things that you said in your interview with Jenny is, I mimicked and I learned from good, successful people. And so I'd like to first ask you to talk about that a little bit, but then as you did that, how did you develop your own style of leadership from watching successful people? And I will let you answer the question from your.
First of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's really nice that I can help the community and help Jenny out in what she's doing. So, to answer your question, in a big place like IBM, there's lots of really good, smart, and successful people, and I'm a big believer in learning from people, right? Because I don't believe I'm the smartest person in the room. I don't believe that I have all the answers all the time. So it's really important for one to learn from others, because the more senior folks, you would think they've made a lot of mistakes, like we all do. They've made some good decisions in their journey. So you would think that some of the actions, some of the results are indicative of what types of values, what type of traits they have. So you would want to maybe mimic is the wrong word, but to figure out what made them successful, right? So you would think on the average, they got to where they are because they made good decisions, they had good values, they had good thought process, they took risk at the right time, at the right place. So I would think learning from successful people is a good thing to do, like anybody else would, right? So so that's why I thought learning from people is very important, because no one is the smartest person in the room. There's always someone that's even smarter. There's always that someone that can build a better answer. So for me, learning from people was a way for me to teach myself at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah. So how did it shape your leadership style, and how did it, how did you bring yourself, how did you bring some of those great characteristics in, and then bring yourself in to your leadership style?
well, yeah, there's a lot of styles, like you said, and I was always taught, and I was always influenced that, and I said this in my interview, that you want to treat people the same way you would want to be treated at the same time. So, a lot of people says, if you ask my peers and people who know me over the years, my style is servant leadership, that term, and yeah, and part of that component is what I learned in a big place, lots of different challenges. Can you adapt? Can you change yourself given the situation? And can you be tough at the same time, right? Being nice, being collaborative, getting input, listening is all good. But sometimes, given I'll make this up, given a crisis situation, someone's got to be the leader. Someone's got to drive the bus to get to that destination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you have to be a little bit more directive. Sometimes you have to take more ownership. Sometimes you have to take more accountability. That's what leaders are, right? I always use the example, you want to get on the right bus to get to the airport, but you don't have to drive, but someone has to drive the bus sometimes. Right. So I guess you got to have multiple styles. Mm-hmm. One style doesn't fit all situations. So you got to remain flexible. You got to be adaptable, and you got to be tough when you have to be tough, and you got to be collaborative when you have to be collaborative. And obviously, being collaborative most of the time is probably the right approach in today's leadership and organizational structures and interaction with people of all diversity, male, females, different cultures, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So having different styles is important, I think.
Do you think having different styles is important? Do you think people expected a certain style from you when you first started out, or do you think people are surprised when you can be tough and drive the bus? Or
I think the other part is that as a leader, you have to be visible, right? And when you're visible, your styles will come out. And if you're not hiding behind a desk, if you're interacting with your teams or various organizations in a big company, people will see how you operate, what styles you have, what your approaches are, et cetera, et cetera. But if you hide in the office or hide behind a desk, then people don't see you. And my nature is I get restless. I don't like staying behind a desk. Staying behind a desk or staying in your office or staying in one location, you're hiding. There's I call it a wall somewhere, right? And people will see that. Sure. Right? But if you're out engaging with your clients, engaging with your people, engaging with external functions, et cetera, people will see and know who you are more than anything else. So I'm a big believer in engagement and talking to people. All right. So
Great. That's great. Thank you. Thanks. So, Jenny has said, folks participated because she knew this group of people. She asked them, they said yes. But obviously, you're, friends with Jenny, Jenny, but there's a reason also why you, wanted to participate in this. So why was it important for you to participate in these interviews with Jenny?
What are the things that people don't realize in all the things we do? I don't work for anybody. I don't get paid by the organizations that I help. People don't pay me. I don't have a W-2 from an NGO that I used to be on the board of. All the development stuff that I've created over the years with my colleagues, no one gave us a paycheck for it. All right, we did it because we want to help the community, and we understand how difficult it is for our Asian community. So when I see a person like Jenny, who's willing to give her time and no one's paying her to do what she's doing right now. Her Himalaya business, that's business. But what she's doing for the community, no one asked her and no one's writing her check to her. So when I see people like that, I will help those people because they're really wanting to do it because they want to do it. Not because someone's giving them a paycheck, right? And no one's giving me a paycheck in what I do either. All right. So I'm fortunate enough. I'm semi-retired, so I can do what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, or until I decide to hang up the sneakers, if you want to call it. So that's why I help people like Jenny, because she's willing to help others. That's the big difference here, right? So no one's giving us a paycheck. So that's why I admire people like her. She came to our class at Stanford University, and I got to know her then. And in her interview with you, one of her traits is that she's willing to ask. And she asked. For those who ask, I will help. Given up to a certain point, obviously, right? So that's why I admire what she's doing more than anything else, right?
Great. And I know Jenny, I think you're unmuted. Please add to the conversation.
Something I think what and some of the other Asian leaders have done so much for the community. What they do is so admirable and they inspire me. That's part of the reason, like you and I talk about why I start this session. Is just, I got inspired by them. What they have done for the community is so admirable. I just want to say that.
So Jenny and Wes, I know that you met at your class at Stanford. Wes, wondering if you could talk more about that program, because Jenny has told me that it was extremely important to her personally and to her career. We
my colleague and I, Bakji, started this program at Stanford over a decade ago, and what we want to do is to help young executives or even experienced executives to better understand what behaviors are needed to be successful as a entrepreneur, as a corporate leader, for our community. And there was nothing available. So Buck and I decided to go to Stanford and ask the dean of this business school if we can convince them. We had to convince them that this was a needed program for the community. And so basically it's for young executives, or even now, we started to take high potential candidates where companies have said, this person we believe will be a future executive, partner, principal at our firm. We want to give them the right background or the right set of training, or not even right set of, but to hone their leadership skills even more. The people who come are successful already, right? If they weren't successful, the companies that they represent would not be sending them. They're successful, they have high potential, They have their own set of aspirations, and so they're on the path. So it's really about identifying, honing, and building a set of networks so they have a higher chance of even more success long term. Right. So this program is I call it a boot camp because we start, and Jenny knows, we start early in the morning and we stop at late at night, and we go on for 6 days constantly, and it's been rewarding because I get to meet people like Jenny, and I get to see people who become more successful, and they give back to the community like Jenny's doing. So, and it's again, I don't work for Stanford, right? But Buck and I helped create the program, and we run and we sit in a program every year, and we get to meet these types of people, and obviously we speak and we talk, we network, et cetera, et cetera. So as one of the executives says, it's really nice that you and Buck are babysitting us for over 6 days. But I don't call it babysitting. I enjoy it because I get to meet other people, like I said, to meet people like Jenny, and that's why.
I think one thing you said, Wes, was interesting, is that you had to convince Stanford that this was needed. So are you saying that, we in some ways you need to convince people that Asians and Asian Americans also need this leadership help? Because we cannot assume, because I think there is some assumption on some people's part that, if you're Asian or if you're, Asian American, you are sort of, that model minority, that model minority, and you're going to be instantly successful because you're just so good at everything. And so, can you, and also Jenny, speak a little bit to that of like, why is a program like this necessary? And, what did you have to do to convince Stanford to?
Well, the dean at that time, he was skeptical, but he was open-minded. So he says, okay, I understand, et cetera, and so let's give it a try. And that's what happened. So, I call it he was from Missouri, and he says, show me, right? I call it the show me state. So I said, we had to show him, and we got enough people to come to the first class. I think 26, 27 people. And he spent time with us, and he says, like everything else, everybody gets enlightened, everybody learns, and when you listen and you have an open mind, things we make progress, right? So that's what I say. You had to be convinced. It's like anything else. There was nothing around. No university, no graduate school, and obviously Stanford University is one of the elite schools in the world or in the country, and everybody didn't know. So it all becomes to a lot of the things that our community is challenged with. The non-Asians are not, I'll use the word aware enough, right? Like everything is. And it's not just the Asians, it's the other minority communities too. So I'm a big proponent of, once you become aware, the issues become more clearer, right? And then people will say, gee, I didn't know. And that's what happens.
Yeah, and that is a genuine I don't know sometimes.
Right. And
based on what Sharon said, there's no ill intent. It's like, I don't know these things.
People, I give a big talk to the C-suite for the last few years. And the general reaction I get is that, gee, Wes, I knew, but I didn't know. Or I really appreciate this because now I have a better understanding. Everybody has an understanding, so no one's blindsided or anything like that. It's just we need more communication, more awareness, better understanding, a voice at a table, all that stuff, right? The more dialogue, I use the word awareness, then you become more aware and things get moving a lot faster, and people get more involved. Right. That I think that's the biggest challenge for our community.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. And Jenny, was there something you wanted to add? I know we're getting a few questions in the Q&A, but I want to give you a chance to add also.
So I want to say something from as a student perspective. Like I said, it's just for those interested in this program and potentially can benefit from this program, just ask your boss to support and even ask what it would take me to qualify to get your support to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the opportunity if you don't ask.
It's true. I've had the same experience. Yeah, I've gone to programs and I've had coworkers say, "Why did you get to go to do that?" And I said, "Because I asked to go," and because people aren't going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like everything else. You have to ask. You got to have a little case behind it. What's the rationale, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
But if you don't ask, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
And philosophy is that what's the worst that could be? They say no. Right.
That's how I feel about it.
Can be, right.
Yeah.
So you just got to ask again. That's all.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. You make the case and you ask. So, Jenny, there's a question for you in the Q&A. Where do you see yourself in your business in 3 years?
I don't have a clear answer for that, and I think with the training I got from Stanford and with the support from my network, I think I'll do well. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question.
And then Wes, a question for you. Can you tell us one time that you failed at something, and how do you deal with failure?
I don't know if it's one time. I failed many times. I think looking back, if I knew what I if I knew what I know today, maybe because you can't foretell how life changes. Things could be better. Things could be easier. It's kind of like Monday night quarterbacking, right? The game is over. Well, if we threw the pass at this moment, we would have got a touchdown or whatever. We would have made first down, whatever the case may be. It's Monday night quarterback, so you learn from mistakes, and that's what I've learned is you make mistakes and hopefully you learn from that and you don't kind of repeat the same mistake again, right? And that's what I kind of learned. Like I said, if I knew what I know today, 10, 15, 20 years ago, who knows what I would be doing? Maybe I wouldn't be doing what I've done. So you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of shocked that we're almost out of time. This has been a really great conversation. Jenny, as the leader and the pusher of this great project that everybody can take a moment to, take a look at. What's one more thing you'd like our audience to know about Inside Asian Success?
One thing I want everybody to know is this is the program started with Asian leadership, but it should apply to everyone with different cultural background. How we reach out to communicate, to understand, to connect to the larger community. It is very important. We take the joint responsibility to make our society even better.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you both so much. I just want to take a moment to say on behalf of Vibrant Pittsburgh, I want to thank you, Jenny, and I want to thank you, Wes, and also thank all of your guests that provided all their insights on the video for very engaging and important conversations. Thank you, our audience, for your participation today. Today's session was recorded, and since it is open to the public, it will appear on our YouTube channel, but also on our member resources website, and you can take a look at our website at vibrantpittsburgh.org. I also want to note that the interviews were made possible in part by NetApp, TD Bank, PPG Industries, Royal Trust Bank, PNC, BNY Mellon, the Mathematics Department at Carnegie Mellon University, 2022 Class of Asian Executive Leadership Program at Stanford. We thank them for their support and commitment to amplifying Asian American heritage. So please remember, if you or your organization has a best practice you'd like to highlight and share in this webinar series, please let us know. Our next Resilience or Equity will be on July 26th. It will focus on supplier diversity. If you have any questions, please contact me, please contact Matthew. And I want to say thank you so much to Jenny Yu, thank you so much to Wes Hom, and I look forward to continuing this conversation. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.